Let's get into some roof framing. So this house is a little odd in that there's two gables that run front to back, and both of those are fully sheathed. So in this video, we're gonna get into how we set the ridge and this middle section of roof. This is a 612, and it's landing on 712 roofs.
And I can come at an angle through here. You good there?
I think so, yeah.
We'll see. We're like an eighth in on the framing.
Okay.
Big whoop, but
I think we'll be able to get these. I'm gonna have to push pretty good, but
yeah.
okay, so. Good day, everybody. Mount Rainier is out. We gotta pour concrete today at 2, and it's gonna start raining about 3. So we are up on the roof, 3 stories up. Let me just walk through our process here. These rafters are pre-cut. So what Kyle did is he screwed them in there and there with structural screws while I held them up. We're gonna have a 3.5-inch ridge. I just put my square, and once they were level, then we squared them. So basically they're just freestanding. Same thing on that side. By the way, there will be time-lapse footage of all of this. That allows us to set the ridge with the forklift without us picking up the ridge at all, or setting it on posts. And you'll see how that works. Then, since the ridge butts that guy, I cut the slot, pulled my tape over to the laser dot. That will locate these guys perfectly. We can toenail it to that. We're gonna hanger that later. I have an outside to outside number here. We're gonna let it run wild. It's just like that roof, where you can see that hip kind of comes up and over. We're gonna plane this out with our sleepers. Where that meets, we'll just whack that off. You'll see that all. So anyway, I thought I would just give you what we're doing right now in real time. So Kyle's grabbing the ridge beam with the sweet swing carriage, and then by him rigging it, it's gonna come up to me. I won't have to do any lifting. What I'm gonna do is right at my 1.5-inch marks, that's gonna be our ventilation gap. So anyway, you guys will see how all this goes. This will be fun. Oh, and Kyle's wearing his harness. You can see I'm wearing my harness. We are tied off to anchor points down below. We're safe. We're being safe, very safe. We're all very gruntled here, Jan. Everyone's very gruntled. So here's the basic concept. We've got the 4 commons, and since they're lightly touching each other, that's essentially center, even though they will go up because of the 3.5-inch ridge. So what that allows us to do is string line across to the roof that I'm on in the distance. That's over the master bedroom, because what I need to do is I need to cut a hole in the sheathing, because this ridge beam is going to intersect that ridge beam, and they'll be connected with a hanger. But for now, we're just getting the hole cut with no math. We just string line it. So here's the math. The math was, take your total span of the roof, divide by 2, take into account your ridge, and that's those common rafters that are all pre-cut. Now, we're just gonna use those to locate where the ridge goes. Clear as mud? It'll make sense as we go along. So Kyle's just booming up. It's like a 3.5, I don't know, by 11 7/8. I forget. I think it was a 3.5 by 11 7/8 glue lamp. So as I mentioned in the story, the goal was to set the ridge without setting any posts or cutting it to length. The length runs out the left side. That was the goal. Now, if you watch the 171 project, there's a playlist on my channel. Shane and I were able to set it exactly this way with Kyle in the forklift, and it was crazy fast. It did not turn out to be that fast this time, and I'll walk you through what the deal was. So what I'm doing up there is I'm high enough and forward enough toward the street that Kyle can see me and I can signal to him. And from here on out, it's just a matter of going out and down and leaning. And I edited out a bunch of footage because this took way too long. Last time it took like 10 minutes. This time it took us probably an hour. Would I do it all over again exactly the same way? Yes, with one exception. I would have rigged the ridge instead of putting it on the forks. Anyway, that's beside the point. So here what you can see what the goal was. We had temporarily screwed all those rafters into either blocking or glue lam. and that allowed me to push up on the rafters and let the ridge drop in. We were aiming for, I think it was a 2-inch air gap. So now it's just a matter of tapping the rafters. You can see how the rafters, they're holding, right? And there's no fasteners. But we keep the forks underneath it. It was a bunch of back and forth. I really thought I could do this on my own. Kyle didn't, and he was right. He was totally right. So in amongst some jockeying, he had to come up and help. We put the forks just like, I don't know, what is that, 4 inches, 6 inches below? That way the beam can't drop. And now the two of us working together can do what Shane and I were able to do the first time, except that this time we don't have Shane. Thanks a lot, Shane. Things go smooth when you're around, buddy. Anyway, that was the process. Now, there did end up being a mistake. What we ended up doing was getting that air gap close, toe screwing through the top with those big Simpson screws. That locked that rafter nice and tight, made the plumb cut look good. But then we actually had to back out some of the screws right there. So see what Kyle's doing? In order to level out the beam, we just decided that on the front side, it was okay to let the rafters hang out a little bit because that's gonna hide in the soffit, not a big deal. I honestly have no idea if we made a mistake with math or if this was just all of the discrepancies that you're kind of making up for throughout the framing of a 3-story house. The fact is, all mistakes are gonna show up on the roof, and they're probably a bunch of little mistakes, but it is what it is. So there it is, the ridge is level. Now, let's put a temporary post in. Again, we framed this whole roof, sheeted it, and there were no posts. Is that dangerous? No, because all those rafters are nailed to the plates and to the ceiling joists, which are continuous front to back. So in a sense, they act like a truss. Then later on, we had dry work. That's when we added the columns. And those trace all the way down to the bottom. Okay, if you've watched our previous videos, you see that we always put blocking at the ridge. We are required to have edge nailing on our roof sheathing for earthquakes. So the simplest way that we found to do that is just cut our scrap in half through the table saw. So there are roughly 2x6 blocks. Our rafters are 2x12, so all the cutoffs just get cut in half with a bevel, and then we notch them for air. It's a ventilated attic, and we have to have blocking for the sheathing. So essentially we're just using pressure blocks. The nice thing about that is I can set rafters solo when they're small like this, and I can just push them against the pressure blocks. So I'm just working my way across. And the thing that I'm keeping in mind is I want my 2-inch air gap. Easy, I just have a 2-inch rip, and that's so as I go, I nail the block so that the block is even with that 2-inch rip. Now when I come to the other side, you saw that I used the level. I just plane that center rafter in just in case something is a little low or a little high. I know it's gonna feather out. This block is custom cut because I'm constrained. You can see down below, I am right up against that beam, so it's not exactly 2 foot on center. I don't care. Those 2 rafters were necessary to make this easy, or as easy as possible. Hey, where's Kyle? How come he's not helping me? Because this was about lunchtime and I wanted to get the drone footage because we had to go pour concrete that afternoon. So I was like, go get your lunch, pick me up something. I'm just gonna keep rolling, that way I can get the footage that I want for YouTube. And by the time you're back, I should be done. This didn't take very long. I don't even know. Somebody wanna count those rafters? 1, 2, 3, there's 6. Basically 6 rafters per side, or 5. So that's not very much work. And even I can do that. I think these were cut out of 16 foot 2x12, so not the heaviest in the world. You can see I'm setting that block to that 2-inch spacer board. There, I moved it right over. Keep the level with me. I don't really like ducking under these rafters, so you're just trying to think, what am I gonna need when I get to the end? Is it easier to move it now? I'm keeping my eye on layout. Each of those blocks is cut 22 and 7/16, since we're 24-inch on center, 1.5 inch material, a 16th, because things always grow. But I'm keeping my eye about every like 3rd or 4th. I'll make sure I'm still on the line. And if I need to trim a block, I'll do that. Because consistent spacing makes sheathing the roof easy. I'll leave this in real time. That other clip I think was sped up at 400% just to make it go a little quicker. I'm gonna leave this at real time. You'll see what life is really like setting the rafters, and I think the process becomes very clear. The main thing is that we want a consistent air gap at the ridge. So the rafters are held high so that the venting can come right out the ridge cap. If they're all consistent at the top, they're going to plane, and because all of the rafters were cut off of a pattern and the plate is level, then they're going to plane down at the eaves. And unless there's some really gnarly crowns, that means that the roof is going to be nice and flat, which is important because all the neighbors up on the hill will see the afternoon sun hit these rafters, and we don't want an ugly rafter telegraphing through the sheathing. Now that the main roof is done, we have a roof plane for a 612 that's going to land on the 712. So here's how we go ahead and lay out for our overframed valleys. Why do they call it overframing? Because the framing's laying over the top. So a layover valley, overframe valley. Here on the West Coast, I've always heard them called California valleys. So there you go. Kyle at the top has the 2-inch spacer because that's the roof plane of our rafters. At the bottom, I just use that Stabila 6-foot level, and I just plane as a straight edge right over the top and put a mark on the zip roof. Keep things nice and straight, snap a line. Now we bevel our sleepers, and I have a previous video, I'll link it up above on why we do that. Now that we know it planes, nail it off.
Okay. So I think the problem, I'm gonna kind of fudge it, make it match this side a little bit.
Okay. I think I'm good there. I'm just gonna do this and then check it with the level.
I can hop in and nail that. And I wonder if you get a couple rafters tacked, we can pull a layout.
Yeah.
Why so many nails, you ask? And why a 2x12? It's not, the 2x12 is not needed structurally for loads, but our engineer wants more nails, and a 2x12 allows more nails so that when these roofs connect, it's stronger in an earthquake.
All right, I'm going to cut it pretty dead straight. Doesn't have to really be bent. Attack that guy.
Come on, I can't get my hands to work today. My my feet are killing me.
This guy will be the one. This is pretty squirrely.
Okay.
So this guy, at least down here, should be the more accurate one. We'll let the blocks fix this dude.
Can you hand me? Oh, stretch, Big T. Man, I tell you what, it's like, oh, I'm gonna get it. Can you hand me the level? Since I got the camera on.
Is that any way to treat your level? The Stabila R-beam levels, okay, that level I first got at the end of 2013 and reviewed it for Journal of Light Construction in 2014, I think is when it was published. That level's still good, and that's how we treat it. So just saying. There's 1,000 ways to do this. One of them is wrong.
Oh,
It's not this one.
Marker.
So Kyle has that 2-inch spacer at the top because he's measuring so that we can hook our plumb cut when we cut valley jacks. You don't want to measure to the ridge. You want to measure to where the top of the rafter actually will be. So is this the world's fastest way to do this? No.
I'd say 97.
But a 612 onto a 712 this high in the air, this is an idiot-proof way to do it, or an awesome framers-proof way to do it. The advantage of the beveled sleeper, in this case, not quite as significant. I don't really need that for edge nailing. I just need a sleeper. But I think we timed it, and I posted it to Instagram. I think it only took about 2 minutes per sleeper. So let's just say it took 30 minutes. I feel like we make that back because it just, well, maybe we don't make it back. It is easier, but maybe we don't make it back. I don't know. A lot of people, boy, do they throw some shade on Instagram. Who cares? I find this to be a little easier. Ben Morton convinced me to do it because he's the coolest framer in the world. I'm not kidding. Go follow him. In fact, maybe I'll put his Instagram profile in the caption. Go follow Ben. Amazing work.
Want to check the shortest and see if
Amazing work. Makes me want to be a better framer.
I had 35
And this he convinced me. This really does make things a little easier. If you don't want to take the time to do it, don't do it. But you're going to see that we're going to keep doing it because
right.
we like it.
We'll just take them all. We'll
We
just
like
take
it.
them all.
We like it a lot. Ah, did you notice? These should be the same length. They're not. They're a little different. Like I mentioned earlier, all of the cheating that we've done, starting in the basement and coming all the way up to the 3rd level, that all lands on the roof. Is it a big deal? Should we care? No. This is the nature of it. And I tell you what, it's a whole lot more accurate than trusses. So,
Okay, so
if you are a perfectionist, I highly suggest getting counseling so that it does not turn into obsessive
I'm gonna
compulsive
kinda
disorder.
reroute all this.
And I'm not kidding on this, by the way. I've known people with that
That guy.
or tendencies that way. They're miserable. Framing is not perfect. It cannot be perfect.
Okay, I have an idea.
And the final product, no matter how much care you took, it won't be perfect either. You know why? Because it's gonna rain on this house as we build it. The sun's gonna come out. It's gonna freeze. It's gonna thaw. No matter how careful we are, we cannot fight the
I
fact
think if we
that we are
plane the
not in a
slope on the
controlled
back,
environment. We do the best we
draw a
can. So
half-inch
is
line.
this perfect? Nope.
And then our
Is it
2-inch mark
right?
at the top.
100%.
That's basically where it's going to be.
Yep.
Where the broken hip goes. What we could do is we could string over and snap a line. I think the sleepers are going to hang way out,
Yeah.
and then we can just cut those in place.
Yeah. Do you want me to hop down and rip another 2-inch block that can tack to the ridge and kind of extend past? And then, or do you think the ridge is too long?
I think, well, yeah, the ridge is definitely too long.
Yeah, because the common's gonna get it. Yeah.
I think we're going to be, with the roof plane, we're going to be over here.
Up there. Okay.
I think we
gotcha.
can let the sleepers run long.
Yeah.
We just have to plane over on a couple spots.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
This side, the California jacks, were the same length. So something on that ridge is just a little out of square to one of the other ridges, probably that master bedroom ridge, and that's life. So now here our valley jacks are all 2x6, which makes it nice and easy. The heels have full support on that 2x12 sleeper. That's what we want. You don't want all of the weight just landing on the toe or the sharp point of those California jacks. The heel needs support. And don't forget, especially if you're in a climate where you might get snow, that snow will sit and collect in the valleys. So don't cheap out by going with a 2x6 sleeper and a 2x6 jack and then having the heel rest on nothing. Just do it right. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be done right. I've posted previously how to calculate the broken hip angles, and I'm not going to do that in this video. You can go over to the Project 171 playlist and you'll find it there. We went ahead and we measured these in. Do you see now what we were just talking about? We ran the sleepers long and we ran the ridge long. In fact, let me show you how I cut the ridge. So I planed the 712 up across the ridge, subtracted or made a parallel line 1/2 inch for the sheathing, and that's where I cut it off. Then we measured in the broken hips. I already have the angles, but we're just checking to make sure everything planes. I only need it to plane within maybe a quarter, sometimes even a half you can get away with, but I'm aiming for a quarter, so there's a little bit of cheating there. By the way, both hips were identical lengths. So, hey, we did something right. Now it's just a matter of making sure everything planes. And that's where the beveled sleeper does help. It's not required, but it does help. Once I feel confident, or once we feel confident that we're in the right place, now I can cut off those sleepers. So essentially, we just avoided all of the math and we let the roof tell us where it needs to be cut off and planed. Like I said, is it the best way? No, but it works. So while I give Kyle numbers for the broken hip to valley jacks, then I can go through and start mentally preparing for cutting off those sleepers, which, you guessed it, just involves a Sawzall. We didn't bother with any California jacks on that snub hip side, right where I'm standing. And part of the reason is I had such a long cut with that glue lam that I knew that was going to be backing for my sheathing. But what we did is we just bevel ripped a strip to sit right on top of the ridge, because that plane for the sheathing, that sheathing overhangs just a little bit, and that provided us backing, and then we just made sure that we had our ventilation for the air. And of course the battery dies. I should have checked it before I brought it upstairs. Oh, that's on me. Earlier we took the numbers, wrote them down. It's faster and safer to cut them down on the ground, so we went ahead and got everything pre-cut on the ground. Now it's just a matter of assembling it. And this part I always really enjoy. You know that they're right because we measured them in. We didn't run off the math, so we feel pretty confident we can just roll forward. We have all of our layout. Now it's just a matter of work your way uphill and nail them off. And this part always goes so fast that you feel like it seemed like a lot of work to get here, and then it's done. But there could be a lot worse things. If you are an especially eagle-eyed viewer, the ridge where Kyle's at should have been the same as the ridge that it was intersecting. I made a mistake. I don't know what the deal was, but we ended up being just a little bit high, but it all hid with the ridge cap and the valley metal and then the ridge cap on that lower roof. So no harm, no foul, but hey, I'm just being transparent. Awesome Framers is an ironic name. We are not awesome framers. We are framers who make awesome mistakes. Let's put it that way. Hey, not too bad. Looks pretty good. It was actually a pretty decent day. So there is the skeleton of the main roof framed over on top of the front to back roofs. So why didn't we just frame this conventionally with true valleys, framed valleys? The reason is because both sides of the house are cathedral ceilings. So on the right-hand side, there's a bedroom in the front, then a bathroom, a bedroom in the back. Those stayed vaulted. On the left-hand side, from the front to about the halfway point, it stayed vaulted. So since basically 3 out of the 4 valleys need to be layover roof anyway, well, obviously it makes sense just to make them all that way. So just some bird blocks and fascia, and this roof is ready to finish sheathing. And I'm glad because this is number 3. There's a house to the left and the house to the right. This was the 3rd and final one. I'm gonna put this in the balloon framing playlist because this is the house that we balloon framed all those walls. And here is the roof capping off the top. And there it is, final drone shots. The roof is finished. It's all sheathed, it's all taped. The eaves metal is in and taped. Now we have a dry place to hide. Doesn't matter to us what the weather does because we're gonna go inside and frame walls. We left most of them out just to get that roof on. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please post them below. Hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up if you feel like it was worth watching. Or you could just give me a thumbs up because you think roof framing is cool. All right, everybody, take care, stay safe. We will see you in the next video.